Once upon a very real time, in the dusty boardrooms of Paris, Washington, D.C., and London, powerful men leaned over oak tables and said things like, "Let us civilize Africa," which in translation meant, "Let's grab everything that isn't nailed down." With a Bible in one hand and a ledger in the other, they came bearing progress, and left with diamonds, gold, oil, and generations of chaos. How noble! They drew borders like drunk toddlers, renamed kingdoms, built railroads from mines to ports, but not to schools or hospitals, and called it development. They said, "We are here to help." The same way a mosquito helps you sleep. Fast forward to today. France, the former babysitter of Burkina Faso, is now standing at the gates of West Africa looking confused, clutching expired colonial contracts and muttering "Liberté" like it's a spell. Meanwhile, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, in his mid-30s, walks onto the scene like a character from Wakanda rewritten, only this time, the vibranium is real and it's called national dignity. Burkina Faso has said au revoir to the French military. They kicked out the so-called peacekeepers who brought more drones than peace and more bases than aid. They even removed French from some official uses. France, shocked, said, "But we taught you democracy." And Africa replied, "Yes, the kind where coups are fine as long as they're in your favor." The West is panicking. Because this wasn't in the plan. The plan was, keep Africa poor, unstable, and dependent, the perfect client. You feed them just enough loans and aid to keep them quiet, and you drain their resources while calling it foreign investment. China played the game better. No colonizing, just debt diplomacy with stadiums, highways, and ports in return for silence and raw materials. The West sneered, "Look at China exploiting Africa." Africa said, "Oh, you mean like you taught them?" America, the self-declared sheriff of global freedom, took notes too. They sent troops, not teachers. Drones, not doctors. Gave lectures on governance while supporting autocrats as long as they were friendly to U.S. interests. And now they wonder why African countries are pivoting away from the global north. The hypocrisy is so thick it could be weaponized. But guess what? Africa is trending. Not because of safari brochures or charity concerts with crying white celebrities, but because the kids in Ouagadougou and Bamako and Accra and Nairobi are done with the script. They're coding apps, reclaiming minds, reading Sankara, remixing revolution into Afrobeats, and saying no. Now the same West that once branded African resistance as savagery is suddenly applauding African resilience, as long as it doesn't threaten supply chains. They'll post Mandela quotes on Twitter but blacklist Sankara in the syllabus. They'll celebrate African art, as long as it's hanging in the Louvre. They'll love African music, as long as it's not a protest song. They want Afrobeats, not Afro-truth. They want diversity in tech, but not tech that makes Africa independent. They'll stream Burna Boy, but scramble jets if his lyrics ever made it into policy. Because what scares them isn't violence, it's vision. What unnerves them isn't chaos, it's clarity. Burkina Faso isn't just rejecting neocolonialism, it's calling bluff on an entire global system that was rigged from the Bretton Woods to the blood diamond mines. They sold Africa democracy like it came pre-assembled. But when the pieces didn't fit, the instruction manual read, "See Washington for approval." And when leaders tried to customize it, the West screamed, "Dictator," unless, of course, he smiled during photo ops and signed oil deals. It's not democracy they fear losing, it's control. Because a free-thinking Africa doesn't make a good colony. Or a cheap factory. Or a silent partner. Burkina Faso, in all its dusty resilience, is proof that you can't drone your way to dignity or sanction your way to silence. The people chose a captain. Young, firm, imperfect. But theirs. And now Western journalists ask, is this a threat to democracy? No, this is democracy. Just not the export version. The global South isn't rising, it's returning. To itself. To its voice. To its agency. Africa is no longer the background of global history, it's center stage. And guess what? There's no room for imperial nostalgia in the script. They used to say, when China sneezes, the world catches a cold. Now it's, when Africa speaks, the West panics, and calls it a security crisis. Burkina Faso's revolution may not be televised, but it will be live-streamed, TikToked, tweeted, and danced to at block parties where the lyrics say, We're not your past. We're your reckoning. If you enjoyed this cup of tea, then follow us for more content.